So, welcome everybody this evening to tonight's episode of Talk, Taste, and Travel. We're super excited to be visiting the beautiful Mediterranean islands in this next segment. And the first island that we're visiting tonight is Sicily. My name is Kristen Sandvig. I'm the founder of LIONHOUND Travel here in Houston. And with me, I have Adele Corrigan from 13 Celsius. Adele, jump on and introduce yourself to everybody, and then let's take off.
Hi everyone, it's me, Adele from 13 Celsius Wine Bar in Houston. I've been the wine lady slash manager there for about a decade, and I am super excited about tonight's episode because Sicily is one of my absolute favorite wine regions in the entire world. I'm so happy.
And Adele, you actually had a trip planned here this summer that is rescheduled or maybe happening next year. Do you have any idea of when that's gonna happen for you?
Yeah, I don't know. We had this whole like 10-day trip to Sicily plans back in April. And of course we had to cancel everything because of COVID. And some of the places that I booked with, I didn't book the cancellation. So I just have a credit to be used within the next 12 to 18 months. But can we go back, by next May, or I don't know. So I might be calling some of those hotels again, being like, can I either extend my credit or can you just refund my money? But I know it's hard to ask for a refund because they've had such a terrible time this year with tourism and just lack of money, I guess. Is my contribution to their community if they just keep it. But
Well,
I don't know. We'll have to go back someday soon. Like Italy is hot on my list. I've been to northern Italy so many times, but I've never actually been south of Rome. And so doing Sicily would be bucket list for me, like top 3.
well, doing Sicily is also on my bucket list. So, with that, let's take off and visit the beautiful Mediterranean. So, the Mediterranean Sea. It is one of the most historically important bodies of water in the entire world. It's bordered by Africa, Asia, and Europe, and this sea has seen it all. It's home to some of the most culturally rich and truly breathtaking beautiful islands in the world. And the Mediterranean climate is equally significant. And when we talk about wine, we frequently we frequently refer to certain regions as having a Mediterranean climate. So this region has become so important that the term itself has become a descriptor. And our journey this week begins in the beautiful country of Italy. And it's a must visit country and one of the most traveled destinations in the entire world. There are so many bucket list places to visit, from the canals of Venice to the Tuscan winelands to the cobblestone streets of Rome to the Arno River running through Florence and to the cliffs of Positano. But today we touch down in one of the most lovely and the Mediterranean's largest island, Sicily. And real quick, I'm going to jump in and ask everybody to mute themselves when they enter because we are getting a little bit of background noise, and that'll just help everybody be able to hear the person who's talking a little bit. And another thing I really want to share with you guys is my company, LIONHOUND Travel, was recently named one of the 6 Mediterranean travel specialists through Brownell Travel, which is my affiliate agency and the oldest travel agency in North America. And for me, that's a huge honor, especially to get that information as we touch down in our Mediterranean wine segment with
Okay.
And just a reminder again, guys, please mute yourselves when you enter so that we can avoid a little bit of background noise. So with that, Adele, why don't you take us to Italy and tell us a little bit about Sicily? This is a place that Italy as a country is a place we've been a few times now, but why is Sicily important?
So we have explored most of the northern Italian regions. We've done the Veneto area and parts of Piedmont and Valle d'Aosta and things kind of like up in the north, but we haven't done anything in the south. And I've always found that like the wines from the northern part are very, refined and beautiful, and they get a little bit more rustic as you travel south. You don't see a whole lot of wine south, like from Calabria, which is the toe of the boot, or Puglia, which is the heel. But you do find some really, really fun, quality, amazing wines from Sicily, things that I'm very, very excited about. And I definitely think that Sicily is emerging as a force to be reckoned with in the wine world. So Sicily is separated from Calabria by the Strait of Messina, and Sicily is actually one of Italy's largest producers of wine. They're only surpassed in volume by the Veneto, and the island itself has a very rich culinary history. You think about all of the amazing foods that come from Sicily, the pastas, the pestos, olive oil. However, the wines themselves have mostly just been table wines, and they've been very nondescript. The most famous wine-based product from Sicily is called Marsala, and that's produced all the way on the western side. Marsala is a fortified wine. It became popular in the late 1700s, and it was consumed by the British, who had a thirst for very, very sweet wines. Around the same time, the British were also drinking port and sherry and any other like fortified things like Madeira. This was due to some of the taxes that were imposed upon the beloved claret of Bordeaux. And because of that, the British were looking for other alternatives to satisfy their wine thirst. But then in the 20th century, Marsala suffered greatly as a result of being essentially rebranded as a cooking wine. I think you guys have all had like veal or chicken Marsala, and it requires purchasing something from the grocery store shelf that you add 2 or 3 ounces into like a sauce. But people don't realize there is really good quality Marsala out there that can be drunk and consumed as a really nice dessert wine. But overall, the marketplace for wine tends to shift away from fortified wines, and people mostly want to drink still, dry, normal wines, which Sicily also makes, but we don't really get to see a whole lot of them. But if you were to consider the climate for Sicily, it's extremely well suited for quality winemaking. The climate itself is dry, Mediterranean, and there's heat. But some of these hot climates are countered by really high altitudes. And a lot of the vineyards are in these high altitudes, which helps kind of like with that diurnal shift that we've mentioned in a couple different episodes before, which is where it cools down quite a bit at night, but then it warms up during the day. And having a good balance of hot and warm is essential to the even ripening process of all grapes. And so you'll find this very common because this is a pretty mountainous island. Some of the famous grapes that you're going to find throughout Sicily, throughout your adventures, for white wines, or white grapes, you've got Catarratto, which we'll taste a little bit later, Inzolia, Gracanico, Caricante, Grillo, even some other funny sounding ones such as Zabibo. And for red grapes, you'll find native Neradavola and Frappato, which we'll taste a little bit later, along with Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio. They also dabble a little bit in some international varieties such as Cab or Syrah and Chardonnay, and they do pretty well. But despite excellent still wines that are coming from Sicily that I love so very much, Italy does produce very little wine at the quality level. Viniculture on the island for those decades, other than like focusing on those sweet wines, they also focused on productivity and surplus and low quality bulk wines. They used to even make grape concentrates, and they shipped those as blending ingredients throughout France and Italy. Yes, the French used Sicilian grape concentrate in some of their blends. However, a resurgent emphasis on lower yields and quality has really begun to take shape in Sicily. And over the last few decades, so fairly recently, this whole idea of quality wines is championed by some very small producers. And we're going to meet 2 of those today. We have 2 special guests that I'm very, very excited about. But if we're going to travel to Sicily, we got to find some cool places to stay and some other things to do other than just drinking, right, Kristen?
Definitely. So if you are flying to Sicily, whether it's from Italy or another country in Europe, because you can't get there from Houston directly, you're starting in either Palermo or in Catania. Wildflowers, citrus trees, and wisteria perfume the air and engulf you as you drive the winding road, the rolling hills before you, and the bright blue sea below. Travelers will find a sprawling region reminiscent of the rolling hills of Tuscany, the epic landscapes and beaches of the Canary Islands, and the delightful ancient stone palaces full of gorgeous architecture and ancient Greek and Roman ruins. The best way to experience Sicily is by car. It's the largest island in the Mediterranean, and it takes about approximately 4 hours to get across. The landscape's diverse with much to see from coast to coast, and a short visit to Sicily will feel incomplete and leave you wanting more. So I recommend visiting Sicily as a standalone trip and combining it with other parts of Italy only if you have the time to really do it justice. The town of Syracuse with the labyrinth-like streets of Ortigia look like a movie set dotted with Greek and Roman ruins. The resort town of Taormina is home to one of the best preserved Greek theaters and the second largest classical theater in Sicily. The drive to Agrigento alone makes a visit to the city worth the trip. Wildflowers of every possible color flank the sides of the highway and show off the fertile soil of Sicily. Then here you'll find a massive area full of Greek temples called the Valley of the Temples, or excuse me, the Temple of the Valley. Mount Etna stands out as the tallest active volcano in Europe, with fertile volcanic soils producing amazingly underrated wines. In seaside Cefalù, you'll find the most beautiful beaches in Sicily. You can hire a yacht and venture out to the islands, the Aeolian Islands, for beautiful snorkeling, turquoise blue water, and some of the most luxurious experiences in the Med. And today we're visiting a couple of really significant wine destinations in Sicily, and it would be impossible to go into detail about all these amazing places. So I'm picking my top 3 experiences to go along with the places we're visiting tonight. And my first pick is exploring the Aeolian Islands by a private yacht. If a private yacht is not your style of travel, you can take ferries from mainland Sicily to the Aeolian Islands. And then my next pick is conquering the summit of Mount Etna. And there are a number of different ways to do this that we'll get into a little bit more detail later. And then my last pick, and so appropriate for the food and wine element of our entire show, is to indulge in traditional Sicilian fare in the beautiful hillside town of Taormina. So with that, Adele, give us an overview of today's wines, and let's talk a little bit more about Sicily as a wine region.
So the 3 wines that we're going to do today, if you guys have picked up your wine packs, these are the 3 that we're featuring. The first wine that we're going to drink today is Tenuta Casalaro's Palmice. It's a blend of Malvasia and Caricante from the island of Lipari. We're sort of starting in the north, and then we're going to work our way south. Then next, we're going to do I Custodi's Nerello Mascalese from Mount Etna. And then the furthest south is Oca Pinti's SP68 Frappato Nero d'Avola blend from Vittoria. All of these wines are great right out of the bottle, so don't feel like you have to like open them up to let them air just yet. They're all pretty fresh and good. We have some special guests from Tenuta Casalaro and I Custodi that I'm very excited about, and we will introduce them a little bit later into the episode.
And Adele, tell us a little bit about where we're going on the map today.
So we're starting in the north, and this is where you can see those little archipelago of islands around where it says Malvasia del Lipari. So these are the Aeolian Islands, and the island of Lipari we're going to visit with Tenuta Casalaro. Then from there, we're going to venture a little bit south to Etna, and you'll see Etna is sort of like that horseshoe crescent moon-shaped region, and that just kind of like circles around the active volcano of Mount Etna. And the closest major city there is Catania, which is also one of the major airports. And one of like, if you're going to travel to Sicily, you're most likely fly into there or Palermo. But for today's episode's sake, you'll definitely fly into Catania. And then further, that blue region of Siracusa to Vittoria, / Vittoria. So our 3rd wine today will be in Vittoria. So Sicily has so much wealth of wine. We just chose to sort of stay on the eastern side and to kind of do a deep dive on that. And maybe in another episode, some other time, we'll do the western side of Sicily. There's so much really cool stuff. And also, you'll notice a little bit of a theme, I think, as well, which are beach destinations. It's pretty cool. The first one there being on the islands, Etna sort of on the eastern coast, and then Sassuolo on the southern coast of the Mediterranean. So you get all aspects from this place here. You'll see that the far western side is Marsala, and that's the region that I had mentioned at the very beginning of this episode. That's where all the sweet wine production is.
Interesting. Well, with that, let's venture off to the Aeolian Islands. So, if you haven't opened our first wine of the day from Tenuta Castellaro, now is the time to do it. We'll talk about it in just a few minutes. And the Aeolian Islands are this volcanic archipelago, and it's one of the most exotic locations in the Mediterranean. And seeing the night sky lit up by a natural firework display provided by Stromboli's volcano makes any visit to Northeast Sicily memorable. Starting from the ancient port of Messina, you can hop from one island to another, taking in turquoise waters, hissing fumaroles, and mud baths. Just off the northern coast of Sicily, the main charms of this volcanic archipelago of 7 islands and 5 small inlets are such that it's been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And they're truly fabulous. Whether you want to go hiking, fishing, canoeing, snorkeling, diving, swimming, sailing, or just relax, the islands really have it all. And they are they've got these beautiful beaches and coves with black sand, pumice stone and tiny pebbles, steaming craters, bubbling mud baths, sulfur springs, strange shaped grottos, crystal clear turquoise waters, craggy cliffs, and archaeological sites. Each island also has its own distinct character. Lively Lipari is where most visitors stay, choosing to island hop on that private yacht, to upmarket Panarera, peaceful Salina, wild Filicudi, unspoiled Alicudi, smelly Volcano, and highly active Stromboli. My top picks for visiting the Aeolian Islands are taking a mud bath on Volcano. You can dip in these natural sulfur bubbling baths and then head off to relax in the warm thermal waters nearby. If you're feeling energetic, you can climb Stromboli's fiery crater with a guide. And to cap it all off, the islands offer amazing views as you can look out from one to another, seeing their conical forms stretch out across the sea. And on some evenings, if Stromboli spouts lava, there's even a natural fireworks show. Lively Lipari is the place in the Aeolian Islands to drink fantastic Sicilian wine. And with that, Adele, let's jump into the Aeolian Islands as a destination and start talking about our first wine tonight.
This is definitely one of the ultimate Italian hideaway vacation spots and major bucket list for anyone who enjoys the island's life. So it's generally thought that all of the vines that were introduced into the Aeolian Islands were brought by the Greeks during the 4th century BC, although some other historians might say that the first grapes arrived via the Venetians in the 16th century, but it's quite possible that both happened at the same time. Vineyard production and wines were made pretty prevalently until the end of the 19th century, and that's when phylloxera hits, which was that little microscopic aphid, that root louse that destroyed all of the vines almost all the vines around the entire world. And really it took quite a while for viticulture to come back. It wasn't actually until the 1950s that their revival was boosted by making some sweet wines from the island of Lipari, which is where we're visiting today. Later in the 80s, there was an artist and architect from Brescia, and his name is Carlo Hauner, and he was sort of like the father of modern wine making in the Aeolian Islands, and he purchased many abandoned vineyards on the island of Salina and also Lipari and brought them back into production. So today there's some 350 acres of grapes that are being cultivated at 15 different wineries, mostly between Salina and Lipari. Major Sicilian winemakers have also invested projects on the Aeolian Islands as well. So you'll see some more famous names, and these are their little side hustles and also great second homes. Annual production is not great compared to the amount of wine coming out of Italy. It's not a lot of bottles. As the region as a whole, they make about 250 to 350,000 bottles annually. I mean, there are some major wineries that do that annually or more. The most common grapes that we're going to find in the Aeolian Islands, signature grapes, Cotarato and Inzolia. And then for red grapes, we've got Corinto Nero, Nero d'Avola, Nerello Mascalese, Nerello Cappuccio. But with that, Let's start tasting wine number 1. I definitely want to introduce our special guest. It's Daniele Sassi from Tenuta di Castellaro in Lipari. Daniele is the head of commercializing all of these wines, and if it wasn't for him working the international market, I wouldn't even know who these wines are. And we've actually hosted Daniele before at 13 Celsius. We did tasting with him and other wines from this same tenuta. And every year when I visit Vinitaly Fair in Verona, we always make it a point to meet up and either taste through the current vintage or have an aperitivo on a piazza somewhere. So please, Daniele, introduce yourself, unmute yourself, tell us more about Tenuta di Castellaro and about what we're drinking today. You might have to hit unmute.
All right then. Ciao. Hi everyone. This is Daniele from Tenuta di Castellaro, Lipari Island. I'm wearing my pajama today. Now it's almost midnight here. It's me, and let me show you my cat sleeping here. You can see him maybe. Yes. Here it is. Vincenzo is the name. And so you've shown where we are, Lipari Island, which is the major island in the Aeolian archipelago. And yes, this is, for example, one of the vineyards that we have right in front of Volcano Islands. You see the smokes coming from the top of the mountain right in front of us there. And we are only 70, in this vineyard, only 70 meters above sea level, where waves crash on the rocks right at the bottom of the vineyard. And so the salinity, the salt from the sea is taken to the vines and improve basically the quality of the grapes. Anyway, talking about again where we are, the Aeolian archipelago draws some kind of letter Y, an epsilon in Greek, on the Mediterranean Sea. You usually land coming from Rome or from Milan, for example, you land in Catania, then you rent a car or you take a bus and you reach Milazzo at the port of Milazzo, and by ferry from Milazzo it takes almost an hour to reach Lipari Island. Then the cellar, which we started as a project in 2005 in order to rediscover most especially 2 indigenous grapes of Lipari and the Aeolian Islands in general, that Tenuta di Castellaro can be proud of repropagate and make very high quality wines that are now much revered by the press and found on many Michelin star restaurants. For example, Michelin restaurant in Sicily carries Tenuta di Castellaro wines, including the one we're tasting tonight, Bianco Pomice, which is our signature white wine. That is made with one of these 2 indigenous grapes that has been repropagated with a muscle selection, and it's called Malvasia delle Lipari. You mentioned, Adele mentioned it before. Malvasia delle Lipari is not the general Malvasia, but it's a specific biotype of the family of the Malvasia. It's a semi-aromatic grape. But it's also blended with a Carricante, which very popular, of course, at the Etna area. And Carricante is a very crispy and tonic, has a zippy minerality. So it's a very different grape. The blend of these 2 varietals makes a wine that is very both aromatic and very crunchy. So some kind of a wine that you don't usually find in Sicily at all. And because, for example, Etna Bianco is mostly about Carricante. Instead, here we have also the quality of the Malvasia, which is trained just like all the other grapes at Castellaro with the Alberello training system that is also popular at the Etna. So where each plant is walked one by one manually, of course, with a density which can be as high as 9,000 plants per hectare. And so very, very dense. The quality this way is more about the work that every vignaiolo, the vigneron can make, working each single plant as an individual. And also important should be, now we show in these beautiful pictures, but also to see the cellar, that it's a real jewel, and honestly one of the most beautiful cellars you can really find, not only in Sicily but in Italy. It's a cellar which is on totally, first of all, with zero impact on the area, and it's subterranean, and there are 3 levels, so the wine can be racked and walked by gravity. There are solar chimneys that can so you can work during the day without using electricity. There is a tower of the winds that can exploit the winds of the proverbial winds of the Aeolian Islands. You know, Aeolo in the Greek culture is the god of the winds. So Aeolian Islands, because the area there is particularly windy. So the wines turn out to be quite different from the standards of Sicily and Mediterranean regions in general. They are crispier, more fresh, I would say higher in acidity and lower in pH, so not so full-bodied, but very high in acidity. So you can age them for many years. This white now you drink in 2018 is actually young for Bianco Pomice. You can use it. You can cellar this wine for another 10 years without any problem. And talking again about the cellar has this tower of the winds that keep with a thermal labyrinth. It exploits these winds of the Aeolian Islands and keeps the temperature constant for at about 16, 17 Celsius degrees. So you don't need any refrigeration, or you don't need to heat the area. It's always constant. And the other grape, of course, I have to tell, because we are the major producer in Europe of this other varietal called Corinto Nero, which is a very special berry, seedless. So when you crush the grape, you don't have seeds, and it's very mineral, fresh. I would say salty even for a red wine, and something that if you close your eyes, also including the white you're tasting now, you don't expect to be in the south of Italy or in the Mediterranean area. So Aeolian Islands are both Sicily and something else. If you close your eyes, if you make a blind tasting, usually you don't think that Tenuta di Castellaro wines are from Sicily. In fact, they are from Aeolian Islands, which has a different terroir, different traditions, different varietals. And as a visitor, I can tell you that you can really have a fantastic experience also by matching the food, the local food, of course, mostly seafood, which is very different than what you can find in the rest of Sicily. And so the recipes as well are very particular with the wines, but also as a enogastronomic experience, it would be a very moving one, I would say. And of course, all the things you can do. You can walk towards the top of Vulcano, the volcano in front of you. You see in this picture. You go to Stromboli, as Kristen said. Stromboli is particularly active. Then, if you want no stress at all, if you don't want no movida, then you go to Alicudi and Filicudi. For example, in Alicudi, there are more donkeys than humans living. And in Filicudi also, there are very few people. Instead, if you want more social life, even if you are somewhere in Sicily, then you go to Panarea, which is some kind of Ibiza, or not Miami, but that kind of atmosphere in the evening. And so each island really has a different character, and they are sisters, but also worlds apart. And
Daniele, which one do you prefer?
Well, to be located in Lipari is definitely the right one, because it's more organized. Then I also like, for relaxing, maybe there are some places in Salina that I believe are really fantastic. if you feel like you are more, you want a little wilder experience, then Stromboli is really particular, and sometimes it's also a little dangerous. I took some pictures last year. I was having a tasting, and I was in Vulcano. Actually, you see this white building on the photo on the right, on your right. There's a white building at the bottom of the island. There is a Michelin star restaurant called Il Cappero. I was having a tasting with some people, and at a certain point we saw a mushroom, big white mushroom. There was an explosion of Stromboli, and those ashes were coming towards us very quickly.
Oh, wow.
Of course, if you take the ferry, it takes you 2 hours to reach Stromboli from there. But maybe an hour and 50 minutes, 25 and 45 minutes. However, so sometimes it can be really astonishing, this kind of experience.
Wow.
And I can tell you, in Lipari, in Aeolian Islands in general, are opportunity for someone who also has already been to Sicily but wants something else. And it's both southern Italy experience and likely something a little more, the yacht vacation is really unbelievable, because you can do something that, maybe only some areas of Sicily, and eventually Capri, you can have Capri in the Campania region, you can have in Italy, or Isola d'Elba, but Aeolian Islands are even more spectacular. And the sundowns are epic.
That's
Sunset,
what I hear. The sunset is the best.
We were
incredible.
talking about that last week. Adele and I were about how the Aeolian Islands are supposed to have some of the best sunsets in all of the Mediterranean.
Hey, it's really, we post a number of pictures every week, basically, on Instagram especially, and we show that every day is different in the end. And sometimes the cameras cannot catch the real colors. Maybe we take pictures and it shows, they show orange color or purple, but it's something sometimes even more particular, not only one tone. And at the cellar we have many visitors also, usually not this year, of course, for what has happened, but probably since next year, from everywhere in the world. For example, even this year we had 7,000 people, and of course they were mostly Italian. Last year we had more than 10,000 people coming from everywhere in the world. So it's a very also international atmosphere, all indigenous, of course, because it's not like staying in a big city of Italy, but also you can make friends when you are in the Aeolian Islands in the summer.
Very nice. I have a quick question about how things are. I know you mentioned that there's not been a lot of tourism, but are you finding that more Italians are coming to visit? And then also, like, how was this year's harvest?
Okay, tourists this year, most of the people from Italy, from northern Italy and central Italy, they usually travel abroad. Maybe, for example, there's some regions in the northeast of Italy. There's many people from there that usually go to Greece or go to Spain or go around the world. This year, most of these people travel to Sardinia and Sicily. And so we were invaded actually by people from the north of Italy, really invaded. Instead, usually it's people from everywhere in the world, and also from the US, honestly. The harvest was actually, in Sicily was very good, I can tell you. I know that, for example, in central Italy, and also in the northwest of Italy, there was a lot of rain. Instead, considering the other regions, I believe we were pretty lucky. because the quantity, the yield was very good. The quality of the berries of the grapes we took home was high. So supposed to become a very good vintage, the 2020. We'll also come from 2019, which was extremely good everywhere in Italy. Instead, maybe the past, I don't know, for example, you have 18 there. 18 is perfect for the whites, maybe a little more difficult for the reds. Instead, the whites were very good. And also the white you're tasting, Bianco Pomice, is already starting to show a little of these hydrocarbon petrol sensations that sometimes come out only in some Rieslings or some Alsatian wines. Bianco Pomice has that direction. And it will show it more and more over the next months.
Very, very cool. So one last question before we move on, Daniele. What do you like to drink? What's your beverage of choice? Do you have a favorite wine?
Apart from wine? Okay. Apart from wine, a gin tonic is my kind of drink. But if it's wine, I can tell you my favorite grapes are probably Riesling for the whites. I like Trebbiano Spoletino from Umbria a lot, which is a less known grape. I also like, of course, Pinot Noir, good Pinot Noir. And, a well-done Nebbiolo and a well-done Sangiovese are always very good.
Nice, very nice. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today about Tenuta Castellaro.
My pleasure.
If you have the time to stay on until the end, and we can maybe have some more questions possibly. But if not, I totally understand, because it's almost the middle of the night, midnight for you now. So if you want to go to sleep, we understand too.
Absolutely. But I'm trying to stay. I want to say hi to everyone and thank you, Lori, and thanks to everyone. And I hope to see you in Lipari then, hopefully soon next year. And please take care. Let's resist. We have a few more months maybe.
I hope so.
And then hopefully it's over. So then we will get better and better. And probably all of these that happen will make us wiser than before.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Daniele. Please stay in touch. And whenever you are visiting Houston next and doing your sales calls and meeting with 13, let us know. I'm sure all of us would love to come and meet you in person and drink wine with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
That, guys, let's venture on to our next destination of the evening, which is the beautiful Mount Etna. And if you've been paying attention in the chat tonight at all, it looks like we have a couple of people who have been to the summit of it in the past. And there are many ways to enjoy this UNESCO heritage site, with the tallest and still growing, mind you, most active volcano in Europe. One unique way to tour is on all-terrain vehicles. And you travel with a guide through the forest, over the lava fields, and up to an authorized crater for a truly amazing experience. Of course, you can go by car and drive up to Refugio Sapienza. And from here, you can walk the short distance to the crater, where it's possible to walk around the rim and even down the crater. There's the Funivia dell'Etna, which is a cable car that goes from this refugio as well up the mountain, which is actually 8,200 feet, or 8,200 feet. And upon exiting the cable car, you can hike to one of these authorized craters, which only takes a couple of hours. It's also possible to enjoy a train ride while viewing Mount Etna, and the Circumitenea train has a 68-mile long route that runs around the base of the volcano and through areas of petrified lava, lunar escapes, and pistachio farms with citrus groves. And then finally, with a designated guide, you can even climb to one of these designated craters at the top of Mount Etna. And so when I say designated crater, it means these are one of the craters that it's safe for you to actually visit and travel along and hike along, where with Mount Etna being the most active volcano in Europe, not every crater is safe, if you will. And Peggy, you mentioned you guys climbed it. I would love to hear, I'm going to pick on you for a second. I would love to hear a little bit about that experience before we jump into our second wine of the night. If you're there, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about it?
We highly recommend it. And we took a little shuttle to the building that you're seeing, and then we hiked into the crater. And this was in June. When you're in that crater, the winds are so strong, they blow off your feet. If you it's amazing. And here we have pictures here going like sideways. But it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And a little bit of smoke. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. And Adele, with that, let's, now that we've talked a little bit about different ways you can experience Mount Etna, let's jump into our second wine of the evening, which also comes from this area of the island.
So here we are with Etna, and Etna it's the tallest volcano in Europe. It's one of the most active volcanoes in the world. And Etna's soils are very unique for making wine. The soil that varies, of course, depending on the mix of different materials and the age and the degree of decomposition of the lava fields, produce a very unique terroir. Along with that, there's high altitudes. Most of these vineyards are situated, and warm Mediterranean breezes that help to mitigate those hot southern temperatures. Most of the vineyards you find on like the eastern and northern side, and most of the wineries, I believe, are more on the northern side, and they're all fairly close together. If you wanted to visit one after the other, they seem to be kind of a short drive between each other. This region has been revered by the ancient Greeks as a great wine growing area, but Etna did fall into decline for centuries. But after the past 2 decades, winemakers are working to realize Etna's tremendous potential, and also the potential of the native grape, Nerella Mascalese, one of my absolute favorites. I am very, very excited to introduce Mario from I Custodi and have him talk a little bit about what we're drinking today, but also the history of the wine and the very special vineyards that he works with. Mario is also a friend who I visit every year when we travel to Verona. We usually get a spritz together or 3 in a piazza and enjoy good conversation. So Mario, please unmute yourself. I'm happy to see you.
Hello, hi everybody. Ciao Adele. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and to talk a little bit about Etna. As you said, Etna is a very particular terroir, is a very particular place. And the first thing is that if you think about Sicily, you think about the southest and the warmest region in Italy. Actually, Etna is a little bit different because anyway, we are on a mountain, we are on a volcano, but all the wines, all the vineyards are cultivated pretty high in elevation. So it starts about 800 meters, which is 2,400 feet, and it goes up to 1,000 meters, so 3,000 feet. So it's pretty high in elevation, and that means that here Etna is not. I mean, it's not always so hot and warm as you might think about Sicily. What we have, which is very good, is very very high differences between day and night. in terms of temperature, which is very good for the wines, and also very strong differences between summer and winter, because in summer you can go over the 90s degrees, and in winter it's pretty cold. I mean, it's snowing sometimes. So you have these big differences, and but this is what also it makes a kind of unique Etna, because Etna is a place where in a month like March you can ski and swim in the same day. So like you go very early in the morning for skiing up to the north side of the Etna, where the Nerello Mascalese is grown, is cultivated. There is a ski station, and so you can ski in the morning and then just go back at noon back to Catania on the coast, and have a swim, because it can go very easily over 20 degrees, 24 degrees Celsius. So and the water of Sicily, it's never really gets so cold. So you can swim all year long. And regarding the wines and the vineyard, also another thing, there are several things that makes also this terroir a little special. The first one, as you said, is the volcanic soil. Etna is very active, and we had a lot of eruptions. We had a lot of ashes, always kept pulling out and getting on the soil, so making it very rich, fertile, and very special for the wine. So the wine reflects this minerality of the soil. And also another thing is the weather, because Etna is one of the very few places in the world where you can have in the same time great red and great whites at the same time. And this is because the place where most of the whites are coming from a climate, for a weather point of view, it's very different from the place where the reds are coming from. Most of the reds are coming from the north side, where also are located most of the cellars. So north side is where Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio, which are the two local varieties of Etna, are mostly cultivated. Is even if it's north, but it's a kind of closed valley, and it's very sunny, warmer, and so it's very good for the red grapes. On the other side, as you see also in the picture, you can see in the picture, this is the north side, and you see the sky. It's a very sunny, it's a very nice day. But then if you look on the left of the volcano, you see the clouds.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is the eastern side of the Etna. Eastern side is where Etna is facing the sea. So imagine like 10,000 feet mountain facing the sea. You will have the influence of the sea and the mountain together. So the eastern side, it's much more cloudy and much more rainy. I mean, we are in Sicily, which is the driest region of Italy, but the eastern side of Sicily, the eastern side of Etna, some villages like Milo, for example, it's one of the rainiest village in Italy.
Oh, wow.
So we have a very special microclimate specifically that makes like in a very short range, because we are talking about 15 miles of distance between north and east, but just in 15 miles away you have 5 times less rain or more rain from a side to the other one. So we have great red wines, great red Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio on the north side, and then we have great white wines of Caricante, which is the Etna white variety, on the eastern side, in a place which is much fresher and chiller.
Very
and nice. Yeah, And also the characteristic of the Etna, since we have this elevation, you won't never find an heavy wine. You will always see a wine which is declinated on the elegance, on the drinkability, a wine which is very easy to pair with food, which is very ductile in pairing.
Speaking of that, Mario, a lot of wine professionals and people who really like wines from Mount Etna oftentimes compare them to Burgundy or really nice Nebbiolos. And in 2011, there was the Contrade. Can you kind of talk about what a Contrade is and like how that has been really influential to other producers in Etna?
Yes, Contrade is a denomination. So now each wine can indicate the Contrada, which is like a smaller denomination where the wine is coming from. The picture you are seeing, this is called this, for example, this area, this very small area, is called Feudo di Mezzo. Feudo di Mezzo is the name of the particular area where the vineyard is located, and this is actually, it's one of the most important contrada in all the Etna, and each contrada has a very specific characteristic. This characteristic is given by the soil, because we had a lot in the past. We had a lot of different eruptions that made different stratification of lava and different geological stratification of soil. So we have different soil determined by different eruptions, and also we have different elevation, different exposition. So each contrada is a very specific place that gives something particular to the grape.
So another quick question that I have about like volcanic soils, like I know that volcanic soils are very important for grape growing because they're pretty well drained, and so the vine roots really penetrate deep in order to extract all of the minerals and the moisture from the soil. But how long after like a lava flow happens can you then plant onto the soil again? Like how soon can you plant vineyards after?
A lot. I mean, yes, a lot. No, you need. I mean, you can treat and you can make a vineyard on a soil, but really, I mean, you need hundreds of years, or maybe better, thousands of years before the soil it's very good for a cultivation.
Mario, are you nervous? Are you nervous that an eruption is going to happen and that you're going to lose your?
No. Eruption arrives every. I mean, arrives now in this period. It's crazy. It's arriving like weekly. So no. We are not nervous because anyway, most of the eruption are always floating in a very particular area on the eastern side, which is it's a huge kind of that valley, which is called La Valle del Bove, and most of the lava is floating there. So and also most of the eruption is erupting like more smokes and ashes. Lava, it's floating, has been floated. Sometimes there have been like very, very big eruption once every, I don't know, 20, 30 years. But I mean, you must be very unlucky to get your specific vineyard.
Okay, so today we're drinking the Pistus 2007.
Yes, the Pistus.
Tell me why this wine
is. Yes, the Pistus is coming from the vineyard, from our young vineyard just in front of the cellar, and this is it's Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio. So mostly it's Nerello Mascalese with a little part of Nerello Cappuccio. It's all cultivated bush wine, as you see also the picture. Bush wine is this particular training system, high density, that also, as Daniele was saying, it gives us a much better quality. But also it's very important bush training for healthiness of the grapes. Because in this training system, the vine gets air and sun all over around, and so it let us not to treat with chemicals the vines, so
Kristen,
we can
you
get
go back
a
one
very
slide? Oh, is it? Go back one slide, Kristen, if you can, to show, because I think this is a picture of you with some of those vines. Is that the bush train vine? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is a bush vein. Yeah, this is there are many advantages. So the first one is that we don't use chemicals in the vineyard, and we are much helped from this system because the vine, the grapes, they can breathe, they can get air, so they always get very sane. They don't get disease. So we don't make them, we don't treat them, we don't need to treat them to get a very good, healthy and good quality grape in the cellar.
That's great.
This is a very important advantage. The second is that, as you see, this is a vine which is over 200 years old, because in this particular training system, you never replace the wine, because you just let the vine produce what she can give, what the wine can give, and so the wine can last forever, because they're not stressed. The production is sized to what the plant can give naturally. And
So,
also another very
sorry, go on. Keep going.
So, and also another very important thing is that as you get a very good quality grape in the cellar and working properly inside the cellar, you can have also a very good fine wine without sulfites, which is also for us it is very important. So to have a total sulfite in the bottle, which is very low, which is also it's for us it's important.
Yeah, for us that's important too. We had another question that popped up, which was the question that I was also about to ask, is that I know Sicily was infected with phylloxera, but some parts of Etna were not.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Yes, this is in this vineyard was not, because for two reasons. First of all, for the characteristic of the soil. The soil is very sandy, so this is very good for the water, because the water drains very fast. This is also, especially, it's very important for the eastern side, because the eastern side, if you wouldn't have such very sandy soil, it wouldn't be possible to do any cultivation with such very heavy rains, and also it's very inhospitable for phylloxera. The vineyard of the Pissus was a vineyard that I was planted the first time in 2007, but I bought it in 2012, and I replaced it completely with bush vine because it wasn't a bush vine. And actually, I replaced it with most of the wines uncrafted.
Cool, that's awesome.
Because the soil of the Etna, the characteristic of the soil of the Etna is very inhospitable for the phylloxera. So since we started already 7 years ago to plant uncrafted vines, and we didn't have ever any disease on these vines from phylloxera. But on the other side, we had much better resistance to other normal diseases, such as humidity disease like oidio or Prenospera. And this is due to the soil, and also to the cold that you have that we have in the winter. But mostly is the soil. It's also the soil. It's very acid. It's sandy and very acid, so it's not very hospitable to phylloxera, and this is why we had such some very old vines preserved.
Thank you so much. I love these wines, and I always love tasting with you. And sometimes you even have like back vintages of things. I think these are age.
Yeah. I'm open tonight in 2012 because the greatness of the Etna is that, and I think it doesn't really taste much different from your 2017. It tastes pretty close to, because one great thing of the Etna is the potential ageability of the wine. When I suggest a bottle of wine, I always say, don't buy one bottle of Etna, buy 2 bottles of Etna, because one is to drink and the other one is to keep. Because the more you keep, the better you will drink in the future.
I love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Mario, so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
We enjoy the wine very much. Feel free to stay on if you can to the end of the episode in case we have any more questions. Okay. But I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen.
Thank you, Mario. It was a pleasure to have
you
and just to learn about your wine and your vineyard, and it was so fascinating. And I hope that if you ever find your way in Houston, Texas, that you let us know. I'm sure so many of us would love to come taste your wines with you in person and talk about.
Yes, I used to come every year as well in Houston always, and I hope I will be able to come as soon as possible as well. I'm sure in few months all of you will be able to come to visit Sicily and Etna.
We're certainly hopeful. So with that, let's continue our journey through Sicily and move on to Taormina. And this is the place to visit in Sicily. And it is definitely a bucket list little town. If you're flying into Catania and visiting Mount Etna, it's not very far. And a few of the best things to do are to visit the ruins of Castelmola, stroll the Corso Umberto, and visit the historic Greek theater. This is everyone's favorite town in Sicily. It sits high above the water where the sea views are commanding. You can enjoy a stroll down the Corso Umberto, and it's a must for anyone visiting this lovely town. It's the historic center, and you can find a 3rd century Greek theater with an open view of Mount Etna, where we just were. And the countryside, the sea, and as well as a cable car connects the city center with the seaside below. While in Taormina, you should also take time to visit Villa Comunale Public Gardens with its lush foliage, or take a short taxi ride up to Castelmola with its remaining ruins of a castle which protected Taormina from invaders for hundreds of years. And this is the place to be to enjoy your local Sicilian fare. And this is also where you want to stay when you're visiting Sicily, especially if it's your first time. And I have a couple of hotels that I want to tell you guys about really quickly. We haven't talked too much about hotels this time around, but I think Taormina is the place where you do want to indulge and you do want to spend a few minutes there. And I know we have a couple of people here who have stayed with Belmond in the past, and 2 of these properties are managed by Belmond. So the first one we have is the Grand Hotel Timeo. You can follow in the footsteps of Audrey Hepburn and Sophia Loren and experience the glamour, romance, and the luxurious way of life at this property. It's located beside the Greek Theater and only has 71 guest rooms that are decorated in exquisite Italian Baroque and boast some of the best views of both the sea and Mount Etna. Stroll through town to shop for ceramics, visit local artisans, and then visit the hotel's wellness center set within the Verdant Park for a spa treatment made with local flowers and fruit essences. Dinner on the terrace overlooking Mount Etna features tantalizing Sicilian and Mediterranean cuisine. The next property is also managed by Belmond, and this is the perfect escape if you want to be on the sea. When Goethe called Taormina a piece of paradise on earth, he may as well have been describing Belmond Villa San Andrea. Along one of Italy's most picturesque bays on a private beach with exclusive cabanas, this villa is just a courtesy shuttle ride away from the town center. You can rest in the blissful refuge of one of the furnished guest rooms, take in panoramic views from the heated outdoor swimming pool, and revel in the complimentary morning local cruises. Relish fresh seafood at Oliviero restaurant and relax with a soothing massage in your room or beneath an orange tree. You can sign me up for that right now. Little guests can enjoy fun activities at the dedicated Smile Club. So if you're traveling with children, this is a wonderful place to be. And then we have Hotel Metropole Taormina. And this is a 13th century historic home in a welcoming and informal atmosphere against the backdrop of the sunset that ends between the crystal clear waters of the bay and the magic of Mount Etna. This property is an ideal refuge for your holidays, where everything's designed to make your trip to Sicily unforgettable. Among waking up in the morning, admiring the sea, an aperitif on the terrace, and a moment to relax in the spa area, you'll discover the pleasure of a holiday to be lived at slow rhythms between all comforts of a luxury stay and the beauty of a warm and welcoming land awaiting to be discovered. And as we move into our third wine, we'll travel along the coast to the beautiful Syracuse. And this is one of Sicily's 7 UNESCO sites, and it was one of the most powerful city-states of ancient Greece. The archaeological park located in Syracuse has a 5th century Greek theater, a Roman amphitheater, and a Greek temple and a limestone cave dubbed the Ear of Dionysus, which we talked about a little bit earlier. This picturesque seaside town saw heavy bombing by both the Allies and the Germans in July of 1943. It's the site of...
It's not big. And there's just, I mean, there are a tremendous amount of people not going anywhere, a tremendous amount. And there's also...
quick question, if you... favor, it looks like somebody got accidentally unmuted. So if you guys could just double check and mute yourself if you accidentally undid that, please go ahead and do that now. Back to Syracuse, the historical heart of this town is the small island of Ortigia, and it's connected to the mainland by 2 bridges. And the islet has one of the quaintest towns that we've ever seen. And before we get to our last site of today's show, Adele, let's get into our last wine and tell us a little bit about what we're drinking now and how we're finishing our trip to Sicily.
We are finishing our trip to Sicily with one of Italy's, even the world's, youngest and most amazing winemakers. And this is a wine from Arianna Occhipinti. Arianna was, at the first time she made wine, 24 years old. And she was showing her very first vintage at an Italian wine fair, and basically has now become a strong influencer of new generation of wine lovers around the world. She has an absolutely charming personality. Anytime I get to meet her or say hi to her, she's super nice and positive. I wish she could be on today, but I didn't quite have as much contact with her like I did with Daniele and Mario. But Arianna is the niece of a famous winemaker named Giusto Occhipinti, and his wine project called COS, or C-O-S, is one of the most undisputed, best Sicilian wines. They were one of the first people to start making really good quality wines in the 80s and on. And even now today, their wines are next level. They'll use interesting amphora, natural, just very interesting vineyard management, organic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their wines are always out of this world. And so basically, Arianna was 16 years old at the time. She knew absolutely nothing about wine, but Giusto, her uncle, asked to come and help out at a wine fair, and she fell in love with the idea of making wine. So she was able to get 1 hectare of abandoned vines in the commune of Vittoria, which is where we are tasting this wine from now. And with that 1 hectare, over the years, she progressively has expanded her estate and replanted, and now has 10 hectares of the region's famous grapes, Frappato and Nero d'Avola, which are the 2 grapes in this blend. A few years later, she started renting some other vineyards of like 50-year-old vines of Repatto and Nero d'Avola and making single vineyard wines. I carry her Repatto at the bar from, I think 2018 is the vintage. Really, really interesting wines from this very, progressive and young, amazing woman. She decided to go to enology school, and everything that they were teaching her in enology school was like the complete opposite of what she learned from her uncle, which was how to manage the vineyards, how to treat things right without using chemicals. So using what she knew, she decided to press forward anyways and come back home, and really wants to make wines that have a sense of place and a sense of terroir that's truly unique to the region of Vittoria. She built a brand new cellar and has really stepped up her winemaking techniques. She does a lot of fermentation in concretes and aging things in stainless steel. And if she does use any oak, they're very, very like large, old foudre. Notes about this wine in particular. This farm is organic. She is certified organic, but she doesn't put it on the labels because she doesn't feel like the organic certification is correct. It's a little convoluted and maybe a little political, because in Sicily, where her vineyards are located, it's very easy to work naturally. And mostly of it is because of the weather and the wind. The vineyards themselves are sort of located between the ocean and the mountains. And there's this really nice wind that blows down from the mountains towards the ocean. And the wind itself is very dry. And that helps to prevent different molds and mildews that might arise and other pests that would require all these chemicals in order to manage. She uses copper and sulfur, which are both naturally occurring elements in the vineyards. She also lets grass grow naturally between the different rows. She doesn't work the soil in the winter. She only works it in the summer, and just really lets things and nature do all of the work for her. So I think this wine is super, super rad. It's highly allocated. We only get a few cases per year. This year we got 2.5 cases for this one vintage, and this is specifically the SP68. And SP68 is the name of the road that's right near her home and where all the vineyards are. This wine is delicate. This wine only sees about a month of maceration, and it's done in concrete and stainless steel. And the vineyards are fairly young. They're about 20-year-old vineyards of Nero d'Avola and Repatto. So let's talk about these two grapes for a minute, because those are the two kind of more famous grapes in Sicily, but specifically this region here of Vittoria, which is just south of Mount Etna. And now if you're looking at this beautiful sunset on your picture, like this is the sunset as seen from one of their vineyards close up. So you're on the southern part now of Sicily. And so this is 70% Repatto and 30% Nero d'Avola. And it's all grown on sandy soils over limestone rock. And the first grape Repatto is something that Kristen, I believe, has once described as Hawaiian punch, because it is not that it tastes like Hawaiian punch, but I mean, it is a fruity red beverage, but almost like you went to Hawaii and it punched you in the face with like the floral lays, the fruits, the tropicalness of everything. And it's a light, very grapey variety, which we hate to use the word grapey to describe a grape because it's made from grapes, but it's grapey, and it's light and fruity and fresh. And then 70% of this is from Nero d'Avola. And Nero d'Avola is one of the more planted grapes on the island, but also a very interesting grape. When it's done right, Nero d'Avola is like Syrah, like Northern Rhone Syrah, where it's spicy, it's red and black fruited, and very, very delicious. So these two grapes together, light and fruity, a little bit more structured and peppery, come together to make this really nice blend. This is the 2019 vintage, so it's very, very fresh. And that's what this wine is intended to be consumed: fresh, young, fruity. And definitely like an aperitivo wine or something nice with like light pastas. We talked a little bit about some food pairings for some of these wines that Kristen had included in the original email with some fun recipes. But if you can imagine just like an eggplant and red sauce pasta, some Sicilian pesto, which Sicilian pesto is different than Genevieve pesto. It's different than the Northern Italians because instead of pine nuts, they use blanched almonds. So, and a little bit of tomato. So you can take like, no skin almonds, your basil, your garlic, and then a little bit of like tomato and grind it all together, food processor it all together, and you can make your own Sicilian pesto. If you've never done it before, it's super fun. I actually did it back in April, and it turned out absolutely delicious. And no one else is making traditional Sicilian pesto, which is very, very cool. So if you're here in the region of Vittoria, they actually have a really cool place to stay on the property that is owned by Ariana's brother. Kristen, do you want me to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? I'm going to talk.
Yes,
Right.
Go ahead.
So this is really cool. It's a property. It's right there by the winery. All of the 10 hectares of vineyards surround it. So it's all an organic estate. They have no TVs in the rooms. They want you to totally disconnect. It's also a yoga retreat and a spa, and their architecture is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a mixture of like modern things, but also some like old. I don't know if you guys have ever been to like the Pearl Hotel in San Antonio, but it kind of reminds me of that, where it has like that really rustic feel, but with like modern amenities. It's absolutely gorgeous. So the hotel naturally gathered inside of the belts of Ballion, distributed between the manor house and the rural complexities at the center of over 10 hectares of the estates. The suites and the rooms become the plot that connects the gardens and the orchards in which they are immersed. A renewed communion with nature is the lifestyle professed by Ballio Occhipinti, who's the brother of the winemaker Ariana. And in the rooms, there are no televisions, there's no minibar, only company. A detoxifying holiday from everyday life to the recovery of a greater balance. For this reason, energy is produced naturally with solar and thermal panels, reducing the impacts on nature and the production of CO2. The ceilings themselves are exposed with wooden beams, the original furniture elements that are combined with the fine fabrics in modern colors, the terracotta floors, the ancient cement tiles. Each element of construction and furniture is the result of research and study for the custody of identity and the protection of a balance capable of enhancing the essence of a place designed to live in symbiosis with nature, enhancing it and enhancing the spontaneous elegance, and offering services from luxury boutique hotels. So you get the best of both worlds.
Thank you, Adele. And who needs a mini bar when you have this beautiful wine estate and all of these fantastic whites, reds, and orange wines available at your fingertips? And
Exactly.
as we move through the region, while we sip this beautiful wine, the sightseeing here is also super unique and super special. And we're wrapping things up tonight, but we can't visit this vineyard and not visit one of the coolest parts of the region. So while you're staying at the hotel, you can head to our Agrigento, which I always struggle with. But this is such a cool part of visiting Sicily. So with an area of 3,200 acres, this archaeological site on the southern coast of Sicily is one of the largest in the world, and it's one of the most impressive Greek ruins outside of Greece. An unbelievable total of 7 Doric temples are here, with the Temple of Concordia as the best preserved. These are the architectural remains of the ancient Greek city of Akragas, which is a 4th to 3rd century BC temple. Plan on at least a half day to see the entire site, which is divided into 2 parts, the eastern and the western zone. The western zone contains 4 temples, including the temple of Olympian Zeus, with massive heaps of ruins. If time's an issue, be sure to visit the eastern zone with the 3 most intact temples. The ruins are all centrally located to the city, and they can be viewed from some hotel properties, even in the distance. So Adele, I know this was one of the places on your list to visit when you were in Sicily. Tell us a little bit more about the Turkish Steps, which is also in the area, and why we would want to go there.
We were thinking that while we were visiting Vittoria, it's only an hour and a half drive further a little bit west, but still along the coast, the southern coast of Sicily, to visit Agrigento and to see all of these sites. Second to Greece, this is the most preserved amazing ruins, and they're literally right there in town. This photo, if I feel like if you were to like look at it from a different aspect, you'd be like, oh no, town's like right there. And you can visit all of these archaeological sites. You can visit like a half day, or you can stay there. But then also while you're there, there's also something really cool. It's called the Turkish Steps, and it's about 15 minutes away from Agrigento, right on the coast. And it's basically this rocky cliff that is all white. And through, I guess, evolution and time and like erosion, there are these absolutely gorgeous white cliffs that you can walk along, you can lay out, you can also cover yourself in the soft rock. It's supposed to be like a purifying, like a mud bath or something. And then you can dive into the warm, bright blue Mediterranean Ocean and just hang out. This is definitely a place for you if you did all of your sightseeing for the first half of the day. Grab a snack, grab a, you know, some bread and charcuterie and salumi and a couple bottles of wine, and go lay out on the Turkish steps and enjoy before dinner. Definitely would be high on my list.
I think this is like such a perfect region within Sicily to end your trip. If you're only visiting Sicily for like 4 or 5 nights, you probably won't have the time to get here. But if you are doing Sicily as a destination in itself, and you have like 7 to even 10 or 12 nights, you can definitely get here and you can really immerse yourself in this entire experience. And so with that, guys, thank y'all for coming tonight. Tonight was a long episode, but we had some really exciting guests, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to share their wines and to speak to you guys. So special thank you to Daniele and to Mario for making the time to join us this evening. If anybody does have questions, I'm not sure if they're still on, but you guys are welcome to pop them in the chat box or to unmute yourselves and ask them to me, to Adele. And if you're interested in becoming an executive producer of our show or a corporate sponsor, you can reach out to us. And we are excited to see y'all within the next couple of weeks when we visit Corsica next week and then Crete the following week. You can follow us on Instagram. We're now on YouTube. And Adele and I are also doing private talk, taste, and travel parties and shows. If you are looking for a way to get your team engaged or to have a holiday party with the wine and travel and fun element, you can contact either of us about arranging that. So before we wrap up, does anybody have any questions? Do you guys want to jump in, share your thoughts, tell us what you're eating with the wines, tell us what you think of them? Now is your chance.
I think these wines are some of like my absolute favorites, and you definitely like with the white wine, it's easy to drink. It's delicious. It's white. It's light and delicious and amazing. And then of course you got Ecostodies like Pistos, which is always a really nice lighter to medium bodied red. But then you have the Occhipinti, which is our natty wine of the section, is maybe like something that is just like a little bit off to the left field, but it's like a super fresh and refreshing take. And I know that there's a little bit of a cold front that just blew through Texas right now. And so I'm hoping that people are feeling warm and living vicariously through all of these beach scenes. And I'm curious to see if anyone has any favorites of the wines or any notes or anything like that. I know we've had some people chat.
Well, and I just want to show you guys before I leave. I don't know if you can see it. Not really. The sunset here is absolutely beautiful. And while we were talking about sunsets in the Aeolian Islands and how beautiful they are in Sicily, if you missed the beginning, I'm here at the Omni in Barton Creek, or the Omni at Barton Creek in Austin, and it's super cold, but the sunset's gorgeous. Well, guys, no one has any.
Great job.
Thank you. If no one has any questions, y'all can always email either Adele or myself, and we'll answer anything we can or put you in touch with the people who can. And we will see you next week as we head to Corsica.
Bye. Thanks, guys. See you next